Good morning, everybody. It is the next day. Our 3D printer is up and running. We're printing something from my buddy for some Warhammer stuff. It's gonna take like almost 3 days, but check it out. It's pretty cool. It's the third print that machine's gonna do, and we just went crazy with it and said, let's just do a 3-day print. Well, today we need to get started on the motor. It's a little late in the day. I was up late, but we're gonna get started anyways. So I need to get all this stuff off of here. We've got our block. We have another engine stand sitting over there. All right, here we go. All right, well, that wasn't too bad. So the block's been cleaned. Everything looks really good in here. It's been bored. And then you see all these little notches here. Those are the notches you need to make sure you're absolutely gonna clear your main rods there. Your connecting rods. So with all those notches in every cylinder, we're good to go. So there's kind of a process to this, and it's gonna take a little while. I'll cut a bunch out, but basically we throw our bearings in here, and we throw our bearings in our cap, and with all of them in here, we use our dial bore gauge to get a dimension, and then we compare that dimension on the inside diameter to the outside diameter of the crankshaft. And then when we get all those numbers down and we make sure they're within tolerance, we're good to go. Like I said, I still need to grab some ARP bolts, but for now, we'll just go ahead and do it this way, and we'll torque everything. And hopefully, we are within spec. Okay, so we cleaned off all of our bearing surfaces really well, because when we're dealing in thousandths and 10,000ths, even the smallest little piece of fiber or something from a towel could throw off your measurements. We blasted them all out with air and hit them with some brake cleaner. And even though there was some debris from the paper towels, we blew it all out with our little air nozzle at 120 psi or so. So that's pretty clean. I guess there was some overspray from the paint that had gotten in there, because every towel was coming out blue. And that's all right. Got it all clean. So we need to torque these bolts to spec and take some measurements and write those measurements down. Thinking about it, my bore gauge might end up having to take these off as we go further back because I don't think my bore gauge will reach all the way back there. Maybe we can get in from the backside, I'm not sure. But what we're worried about on these, like John was saying over at the shop, is our vertical clearance. We don't care as much about the side clearance, it's all about that vertical. Okay, so this is a dial bore gauge. This one goes down to a 10,000th of an inch, which is what we need, so that's 0.0001. I think we're gonna start off by measuring our journal diameters. That is the outside diameter of the crankshaft that is gonna fit inside of those bearings. And that'll tell us what we need to set up our dial bore gauge to. I made a little sheet. You can find these online, and I'll go ahead and put this in an Excel sheet or a Word document and make it look pretty. So we got journal OD on all of these. Number one is gonna be at the front, and we'll measure all the way back for each of the 5 different bearings we got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll put those numbers in there. And then we will compare those journal outside diameters to the bearing inside diameters, and that'll give us our clearance. Now, John said that 2324 would be good for an all-out race application. Everything I'm seeing online says go tighter, go like 0015 to 002. So we don't really know what we have right now, so we're just going to go ahead and measure it and see what we get. And if it's too far outside one way or the other, we'll call John and say we need some different bearings. And the other thing we got to look at is our thrust clearance. So that crankshaft's going to move forward and backward inside of these bearings, but just a little bit. And these are your thrust bearings right here. So when we get the camshaft or the crankshaft installed, we're going to push it all the way back until that crankshaft hits this bearing surface right here. And then we'll put a different measuring device on here, and we'll push it forward with the screwdriver, and we'll see how much that crankshaft can move forward and backward. Now that needs to be between 0.004 and 0.001 of clearance, according to everything on the internet. I don't think I talked to John about that one, but that's pretty common. Okay, so what we have here is a Mitutoyo. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I think I am. It's a 2 to 3 inch down to a 10,000th gauge. These little gauges aren't exactly cheap. They're about 150 bucks a pop. But we're gonna calibrate it and make sure it's good to go. And then we'll start measuring the journal outside diameters of the crankshaft. Which would be here, 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 there, and there. Okay, so we got all of our journals measured. I checked them a couple times. I checked them against each other. We double checked our measurements and our addition with our caliper, just, as a sanity check. It's not exactly as accurate, but at least it'll tell me, yeah, you're within the ballpark. It looks like we're between 2.2483 and 2.2484. Now we know that we need to set our dial bore gauge up probably to about 2.25. You want to take out your micrometer. Well, you should already still have it out. And if you don't have a set of these micrometers and you're trying to use a caliper or something to do all your measurements for this, man, you really should either get a set or just let the motor shop go ahead and do all this for you, because when you're talking thousandths and 10,000ths of an inch, if you get something wrong, you're jeopardizing, thousands of dollars worth of work and material. But Anyway, so assuming you have this caliper, we got this set up to 2.25 inches, which is a little bit bigger than what we were measuring on our journal OD. Right? Makes pretty good sense. 2.2 and then halfway to the 3 makes it 2.25. For sanity check, you can use your caliper. Yes, that fits right in there. And it's set at 2.25, and so it's pretty accurate. So now what we want to do is we want to set up our dial bore gauge. We have all of these little anvils here. And if we put an anvil in, this bore gauge measures 2 to 6 inches. So we took the number 2, which will put us at 2.165 inches. And then we grabbed just the the 0.08 washer, and we screwed it onto the end of our bore gauge here. So doing the math on that, that'll give us 2.245. So we'll be off by 5 thousandths to make 2.25. It's fine. We've adjusted the dial where we need it, and this is kind of the tricky part. You really want to have a bench vise to do this, to hold your caliper, because you got to get these two little ends of this dial bore gauge right in there, and it's really hard to do with one hand. In fact, I really can't even do it holding the camera. And get it really well centered. Just like that. So what you're going to see when you get your dial bore gauge in between that micrometer is that it's a little difficult to hold in place, but you can get it, as long as you're not having to hold the micrometer as well. So you can see that needle moving. And if I move this back and forth very slightly in the micrometer, you'll see it'll reach a point where it goes up to its max, close to 0 there, and then it just starts to come back down. If I move it this way, it goes down. Get to my max, go back this way, it moves down. So what you're looking to do is to find that maximum point, and then set that 0 to it. When you take it off the caliper, obviously it's going to go all the way back to some random point. Don't touch it. You've rotated this around to get your 0 where it needs to be when you're exactly at 2.25 inches. Now down on that smaller part, we were at the 0.4. It's not going to matter too much, but if it was to go from 0.4 to 0.3, we are way off. So we push this anvil down in here, rotate it up a bit, get it kind of vertical in there from top to bottom, and then check out your gauge. We know if we get all the way over to that 0 mark, we will be at our diameter will be at 2.25. And anything that way, counterclockwise of the 0, is going to be an additional, is going to be over 2.25. So we're going to find the point, just like we did when we were setting it up, where it stops going towards the 0. And that's our maximum. Because obviously if this thing is cockeyed in here at, 20 degrees or something, we get way more clearance. But we want to find the smallest clearance. So when it gets the closest to the 0. And it looks to me like we're at about 10 thousandths. We'll call it exactly 10 thousandths. As we're marring up our bearing a little bit in here. That's gonna happen. Don't worry about it. So on our bore gauge, we can see that each of the little increments on there is equal to 1/10,000th of an inch. Now if you get all the way to the 1 past the 0 going counterclockwise, that means you're at 10 thousandths, or 1/1000th of an inch. So plus 0.001, we get 2.251. Great. So on that first one, on our first bearing here, you can go ahead and write down 2.251. We were only a thousandth over. That's why it was so hard to fit the micron or the caliper in there. It was just barely big enough. But we did have an extra thousandth clearance in there. So now we can take these two numbers on our phone here. 2.251 minus 2.2483. We end up at 0.0027 ten thousandths. So we're at 27 ten thousandths of an inch of clearance. Now I think we're supposed to be shooting for the 23-24 range. So we are a little big on our clearance there. So we're gonna go ahead and double check everything and make sure we got this right. Okay, we went ahead and just checked the back side of that bearing, and we got another 10,000th in diameter. So that means that bearing's ever so slightly tapered from the front to the back. It gets just a tiny bit wider. So these bearings may not work for us. These may be way too loose. We'll keep checking and see what we find out. Dang. So that means our bearings are way too loose, I think. Unless we were doing, like John over at the shop said, some sort of racing application. Our bearings are too big because we need to be shooting more like 23, 24, and in fact our biggest one was almost 31 ten thousandths. So what this means for us is we need to stop what we are doing, halt this process, and give John a call and share our findings with him and tell him, hey man, we got our bearing clearances is, you know, they're from 25 to 31, I think. Yeah, our biggest, or our smallest was 25 thousandths and our biggest was 31. So we'll give them a call and we'll have to get some different bearings. This is just another good example of why you might want the shop to do this. I don't know if they're gonna take these bearings back like this. You may end up just having to buy another set. That just might be what it is. I don't think these bearing sets are too expensive, 50, 60 bucks. So we're gonna go ahead and cut off here, take this information, get all these bearings out of the block, and tomorrow we will give the machine shop a call and let them know that we need smaller bearings. All right, guys, thanks for sticking with me. If you like what you see here, like, comment, subscribe, all of that. It'll help me out. I'm trying to get to 1,000 viewers. Right now, that's my only goal. Well, that and to get this motor back in. So, yeah, I'll catch you guys next time.